Moving on, our next speaker is Threya Sakshi, and she's going to talk to us about recognizing and overcoming the internalized misogyny in her life.
Around 7 or 8 years old, I went to this summer camp, and I remember meeting a girl there who told me that her favorite color was blue. At the time, this struck me as very strange because it was rooted into my head almost as a rule that blue was only for boys and pink was for girls. Throughout my childhood, I developed biases such as these through everything I did, including the TV shows I watched, the toys I owned, and what I saw and heard at school. And I'm sure I'm not the only ones because society has drilled these sexist gender roles into all of us. And though many of you may not realize it, the majority of women are bound to these rules for the entirety of their lives. But let's take a step back and rewind to when these rules actually began to take shape, our childhoods. Like me, you probably grew up watching Disney movies such as Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and Snow White, to name a few. But I want you to think for a moment, what do all of these movies have in common? They are all centered around kind-hearted yet vulnerable women who exemplify over-accentuated and unrealistic beauty standards and who require a prince to save them so that they can attain their happily ever after. Though seemingly insignificant, the effect that these types of media have on young and impressionable children is detrimental. Media such as Disney movies perpetuate norms on how children should act based on their gender, therefore creating the first rule. To truly be a girl, you have to display certain personality traits. Girls must be emotional, but boys can be logical. Girls must be artsy, but boys can be athletic. Girls must be submissive, but boys can be aggressive. And if a girl were to defy these traits, she would be labeled a tomboy, suggesting that all girls are a type of feminine, and if a girl is interested in boy things, that makes her a different type of girl, with a different label. Believe it or not, we are still affected to this stereotype today, for our entire lives, really. I'll give you an example. When I say the word teacher, what do you think of? Probably a kind-looking lady writing on a chalkboard. Now what about principal? An authoritative man sitting at his desk. What about nurse? An attentive woman caring for her patients. But firefighter? A man heroically putting his life at risk to save others. The effect that media has on children doesn't end here. The media also influences girls to form unrealistic expectations of how they should look. According to a study, 81% of 10-year-olds worry about being fat. This is incredibly disheartening. A 10-year-old child should never have to worry about how her body is perceived by others. And similar to the stereotype regarding gender-based personality traits, stereotypes surrounding body standard also stick with us for our entire lives. As we grow older, we are fed more and more forms of media that bolster unrealistic and toxic beauty standards, thus creating another rule. Women must satisfy societal beauty standards in order to be labeled as beautiful, but it doesn't end there because, like fashion trends, beauty standards can go in and out of style. So in order to remain beautiful, women are pressured to conform to something that changes arbitrarily. Approximately 78% of 17-year-old girls are dissatisfied with their bodies, and for many, this dissatisfaction can propagate the development of disorders such as anorexia, body dysmorphia, and other mental health issues. Now, apart from the two rules that we've discussed so far, there's another one that I see very prominently in our society today. In my freshman year of high school, a friend of mine had been sexually assaulted. The perpetrator was well known and well liked, which made the situation all the more difficult. Nevertheless, she found the courage to speak out. But unfortunately, she was only met with invalidation. She was called a liar, an attention seeker, and much more. These labels had completely silenced her, and for a long time, she never wanted to speak out about anything of the sort ever again. But why was that the case? I mean, why did she have to be afraid? She hadn't done anything wrong. According to Justice Department analysis of violence crime in 2016, 80% of rapes and sexual assaults go unreported. Countless women around the world are unable to speak out about and get justice for their sexual assault because of societal victim blaming. Hence another rule. A woman must always stay silent, and if she is not, she will be labeled and ostracized by society until she is forced to shut her mouth. So now let's take a look at the list of rules that we've talked about so far. We've got number 1, if you truly want to be a woman, you must display feminine characteristics. Number 2, in order to be beautiful, you must fit an unrealistic beauty standard. Number 3, regardless of the situation, if you want a good reputation, you must stay silent. But these are only 3 out of several societal rules that women are confined to. We've also got number 4, be friendly but never too friendly. If something happens, you are asking for it. Number 5, don't wear revealing clothing if you want to be taken seriously. Number 6, don't cover up too much if you want men to find you attractive. Number 7, don't stay out too late at night. If something happens, you should have known better. Number 8, be career-oriented if you want to be considered as accomplished. But number 9, get married and have children before the age of 30 if you don't want to be seen as self-obsessed. These rules have been ingrained into us since our childhood, and they are reinforced by literally every single aspect of society. But who, or rather what, is to be held responsible for these double standards? The writer of all these rules, and ultimately the culprit behind gender inequality, is misogyny. I'm sure you've all heard the term misogyny being used all around us, but for those of you who haven't, misogyny is basically just prejudice against women. We see it in our everyday lives. If a woman gets raped, she must fear for her reputation. If what a woman wears is distracting to men, she is labeled and degraded. If a woman speaks out about injustice, she is attention-seeking. If a woman chooses to be ambitious and career-oriented, she is selfish. If a woman doesn't fit a male-created beauty standard, she is ugly. But none of this is new to us, right? I mean, we all know about sexism and we all know about double standards. Regardless of who you are and how old you are, we all see these examples of misogyny in our everyday lives. The hypocrisy of these rules is ridiculous, and I think we can all agree that no one should ever feel obligated to follow them. Yet every one of us lives by these by our entire lives. So why are we so idly standing by as society reaps the benefits of our passivity? A huge factor that plays into this is internalized misogyny, which means exactly what it says: misogyny that has been internalized. This causes us to project sexist ideals not only onto ourselves, but also onto other women. Many of us, however, are unaware or in denial of our own internalized misogyny. As hard as it is to accept, us women have it too. And if you told me this a few years ago, I wouldn't have even believed you. I mean, I've always been passionate about women's rights, so how could I, an advocate for gender equality, possibly be misogynistic in any way? This mentality right here is what allows society to govern our thoughts and actions. What I needed to accept is that even as a woman, and even as a feminist, I to some extent have internalized misogyny. This can be seen in so many ways, like, for example, linking self-worth to appearance, or discomfort portraying characteristics that aren't feminine, like being assertive or being bold, or the "I'm not like other girls" trope, or seeing other women as competition. These are all extremely common examples of internalized misogyny that literally exist all around us. So with all that being said, what can we do to reverse misogyny and break the societal rules that have been instilled into us for our entire lives? The first step really is just acceptance. We must come to terms with the fact that internalized misogyny exists within us all, and it's holding us back from achieving gender equality. We should be open to making a change in the way society has been wiring us to think for centuries, and be more self-aware and intentionally look for ways misogyny impacts us as individuals. How does it impact our lives and our actions and our thoughts? It'll take some time, but with patience and persistence and self-awareness especially, you will be able to undo your own internalized misogyny, which will be a huge step towards accomplishing gender equality. Thank you.